Hello, and welcome to Alive or Just Blethering, a podcast where two 30-somethings discuss the music we found and loved growing up. My name is Chris Lavender, and with me is my fellow host, Keith McLeod. Today on Alive or Just Blethering, I'll be taking us through Golden State by Bush. Keith. Keith, are you there?
Fucking golden shower, what?
Are you there?
What? Sorry, I fell asleep. What's going on?
We had to listen to a very, very different album this week, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. What was it? Golden Shower by fucking Shrubs.
Bush.
Bush.
Yeah. I asked us to do that.
Have you got? Is this bit over? Have we done it? Was that comedy?
We did the bit. I don't know if
Great.
it was...
We did the bit. Man, this. Look, I hope you're well rested. Hope you've not had a lot of stress in your shoulders recently, because you're gonna have to carry this episode. Because I got fuck all for you, man. Honestly, this is possibly, without jest, maybe the most boring album I have ever heard. Or it's certainly one of them. Because what is on this album?
It's an absolute disappointment. So just to clue our listeners in, again, thank you for tuning in. Those who've come back, if you're new here, hello. If you're not, thanks for coming back. We're going to talk about an album today that it was important to me for the right reasons, I hope, but it was not for its content.
Ticks the criteria. This was important to you growing up, of why I cannot wait to fathom, but okay.
I hope I can try and explain it through this episode.
I hope you can too, because then that justifies why the fuck I've been listening to it for the last 3 days.
I mean, you listen to it for an afternoon, surely.
At least.
Yeah,
probably.
At least. Hey, it rekindled my appreciation for Bush.
That's what she said.
Thank you. And I went out of my way to actually acquire the better Bush album, Razorblade Suitcase, which I would strongly recommend anyone who enjoys the type of music we're discussing to have a listen to, as it's a very good album. This one, however, we'll talk about. So Golden State.
But just to interrupt there, just to bloody hold on a frickin' second there, mate. That's further testament to the question of, why did we listen to this album if you didn't even buy this album? Like, you bought another one, a better one with an equally crazy name.
Well, I've already got Golden State on CD, so I don't need to buy it again, do I?
Oh, okay.
This is the reason. So the reason it's got a special place in my heart is very much a nostalgic one. I got this album Christmas 2001 because I asked my mum and dad to get me it for Christmas.
Cute. Okay.
And they did.
Wow.
And they got the right album.
That's adorable.
Exactly. So there's the first little, I'll never forget they bought me this album.
Okay.
So that's up there. But that's nothing to do with you listeners. So this was Bush's fourth album. They were a band since 1992. They had been on various labels. This was their first album on Atlantic Records, a major label. Prior to that, they'd been on Interscope. It was written and recorded by the four main guys. So we've got Robin Goodridge on drums, Dave Parsons on bass. These are names I'm not going to really say many more times. Nigel Pulsford on lead guitars. He's going to come up again. And
Big Nige.
Little known singer / guitarist that some of you may know as Gavin Rossdale.
Never heard of him.
I mean, he's a celebrity in his own right.
Is he?
He has IMDb credits more than you do, Keith.
I have an IMDb credit, thank you very much.
Being in your mate's music video doesn't count.
No, it was my music video. No, it wasn't my music video. It was my movie, and we won a competition. Thanks very much.
I'm IMDb in that, and I'm going to put a screenshot on the Instagram page for that.
In saying that, I don't know if I do have an IMDb credit or if I was told I should have an IMDb credit. But I did make a movie, and we did win the 40 hours.
I've just pointed out he's got more IMDb credits than you. I've got an IMDb credit. Or do I?
That's a great question. It was 2011, man. It was a wild time. I was listening to bloody Times of Grace, not Gavin Rossdale.
Oh, Times of Grace, you're bringing them up again. Christ.
I jest. I'm fully aware of Gavin Rossdale, and as you said earlier on today, he was in... Crap, it's gone. Constantine.
He was. He's Balthazar in Constantine.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I like that movie.
There we go. So there we go. Anyway, so this was the fourth album. They'd had a run of relatively successful albums. 16 Stone, their debut album, followed by Razorblade Suitcase, and they then...
Awful names.
It's the 90s. You've got to put yourself in the frame of the 90s.
I can't. Not if this is the frame.
The frame is... I was going to say something very 2000s. It was prior to that. It's very Britpop. It's very Union Jacky. It's... Yeah, you know...
Well, there's another reason why I probably don't like it.
Well, it's one of the reasons that Bush were more popular in the United States.
Why? Because they were from Britain. Because they were from the royal family and British. Yes, fucking Americans love that shit, don't they? Fucking mugs. Sorry, there's a couple of Yanks that listen to this, don't they? Well, fucking fuck you. Fucking we're Britain. Yes, get the bloody colonies back, eh? What?
Colonies, they are sure rowdy. So Bush were actually quite popular in America, to my surprise. I always thought them as like middling popular. Never saw them as like a big band, but some reason they just seem to be everywhere at sometimes. It turns out that because Britpop was a thing during the 90s, your Blurs, your Oasis, your Pulp, Bush were meant to fall into that. They people expected them to fall into that sort of sound, and they weren't. Bush were pejoratively referred to as a post-grunge band, because America didn't get the Britpop thing, but they had a hole as grunge bands were evolving, and Bush fit that hole. So when they made these albums, 16 Stone and Razorblade Suitcase, they went down a storm.
Again, terrible names, but I suppose at that point what you could say is they sort of they did predate Britpop. They were just before, you would say, Oasis and Blur. Is that fair?
Probably around the same time, for popularity's sake. Something like Wonderwall would have come out in 1996, which had been about the same time as Razorblade Suitcase.
Yeah, so what, Oasis went from 91 to 2009. What's the story more in their breakthrough was 93 to 95.
Yeah.
So when did these guys hit these states?
92. Well, 90. Whenever the albums that I've not researched came out in 96, I think they had Razorblade Suitcase. In 97, they made that techno remix album called Deconstructed, with some truly awful remixes. In 1999...
I listened to some of those remixes. I listened to the Swallow remix. Fuck me.
So
that
bad.
Is just...
so bad. I
don't think we need to preface everything with, oh, they're musicians, they do better than me. Of course they've fucking done better than me, but Jesus Christ, I would not have just put that out. Like, it is complete garbage, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, pretty much. They had another album out, which its name escapes me because it was not that good either.
Shocker.
But that in 1999. And basically, 1999 was a bit of a turning point for them. So they've released 2 albums that were more electronic leaning, that were veering away from what had made them popular initially. And
doesn't sound very grunge.
well, this was it. So they went back. They wanted to go back to their roots. Take,
As all bands do.
strip it back. Just take it nice and simple. And that's what Golden State was. An album that was mostly well received by critics, but it just didn't do what they wanted it to do. So the previous album was called The Science of Things. That was an electronic leaning album, and that was on the back of Deconstructed, which was this remix album again. So the fans were getting alienated, to say the least. And in 1999, Bush were the first headline band at Woodstock 99.
Ooh, and we've discussed Woodstock 99 back in our Limp Bizkit episode.
That's
which
right.
is episode 3?
4.
Fuck.
Episode 4, Limp Bizkit.
Significant Other.
So if you want to learn a bit more about Woodstock 99, check out a previous podcast. But basically, if you look at the Woodstock 99 sort of roster, Bush were a little bit out of place, and they recognised that themselves. They felt they were like this sort of delicate alternative band, and then you've got
Delicate.
then you've got Limp Bizkit. Delicate was their word. Delicate was a word that I think Nigel Pulsford used to describe themselves. But yeah, you had them compared against these new metal juggernauts that were on the way, like Limp Bizkit, who literally tore the place to bits. Mm-hmm. So this was the mindset. So it's just putting yourself in the mindset of the band when they went to record and write this. They're trying to be raw. They're trying to be hip and, popular again, for want of a better word.
It doesn't sound like they're actually going back to their roots. It just sounds like they're trying to tick some boxes.
It did become a bit of a tick box exercise. Again, though, critics, all music critics, Stephen Thomas Erlewine, said in a 2001 review, this is a return to basics. This is a return to the sound of their 1992 debut album, 16 Stone. I have to be honest, I'll say a fan, because I don't mind it. I'm not put off by it. But this album bored me to tears as a teenager.
Fair.
Not not real tears. I'm being a bit hyperbolic. I was really bored by this album. It was not an impressive album. It had maybe 2 songs on it that I'd listen to again, and I haven't changed that position today from 20 years ago. I'll be honest with you. If you want to tune out now, you're welcome to. That's my bottom line on it, really.
So there you are. It's Christmas 2001. You're going through your gifts. There's a CD-shaped box, and you're like, "Oh my God, is this it?
Okay, I'll give you the full rundown. I'll give you the full rundown.
All right, okay, go for it.
So, it was, I'd asked for a new hi-fi, so I got a Sony micro system with a mini disc input.
Fucking yes!
So I was so happy that I could rip directly from tapes, from CDs, or from any analog input like my computer for the old, Napster. I could rip that direct to direct to mini disc, and it sounded great. So the package was, I got this new shiny microsystem, got it all wired in, got it all set up, speakers where I wanted them.
I mean, I miss those days, man. We don't set up hi-fis anymore. You don't get the speakers out of the box and you get it to work. All right, okay, you do because you're a giant fucking nerd. But for the people who are not able to see what I can see on our webcams here, Lav has a fucking super nerdy LP amp monitor setup. So enjoys his high quality music. But for those of us who, just like me, who are not that guy, I miss those days.
Yeah.
You get your crappy little speakers that are just like plywood or whatever. But hey, you get to put in the wires and you feel like you're doing something, like you've built it.
Oh yeah. So this was my first system with proper like detachable wires, and the speakers were independent, and I thought it was the dog's bollocks. I was so happy.
The
And
bee's knees.
the CD that was gonna break the seal, gonna be the first to christen such an event was Bush's Golden State. And this is the reason it's been picked. It was the first album I got to play on this microsystem.
Nice.
I put it on, cranked it to 10. I think it went up to 30. I didn't want to be too loud. I don't know.
And then your mum was like, fucking Chris, put it down. And you were like, shit. And then you went back down to 4.
Unfortunately, no. Have you heard the beginning of Solutions?
Solutions?
The very first track 1, Solutions.
Oh, then I have heard it.
Yeah.
I've told you it was called Solutions.
It's called Solutions. I was like, oh, is that it? It's the most disappointing opening track of any album. It is the worst track 1, side 1, or whatever you want to call it, that could ever have existed. It picks up, it does build up eventually, and it does become a bit anthemic towards the end, and I could see, in a live setup that could probably work. But the decision to make that intro the start of the album baffles me. Still to this day, 20 years later, I put it on and I just want to skip that fucking track straight away.
Lav, there's going to be a recurring theme throughout this entire episode, and it's like, it baffles me they made this album.
No,
put
no.
it out there.
I'm not baffled by the creation of the album, because if we look at the personnel on this album, it had all the right ingredients.
All right, hit me. Who we got?
Who have we got? Right.
Have we got some Jeff Blue?
There's no Jeff Blues.
These
guys were already signed. These were big boys. These were big boys by this point. These had been on. Right. So Razorblade Suitcase was a US #1 album for 5 weeks.
Wow, 5 weeks.
These were no spring chickens. So by the time we're talking about Golden State coming up, they got the names in that they needed to make this album work.
All right, producer.
The producer's name is D. Sardi. He has been the producer on albums such as Marilyn Manson's Hollywood, Marilyn Manson's Lost and Found setup singles. He was the mixing engineer on Renegades by Rage Against the Machine. He was the producer on System of a Down's Toxicity. He was also the producer of another callback on Wolfmother by Wolfmother.
Right, I know why you're referring to that, because I referred to it in a previous episode and I referred to it wrong. I even prefaced myself with, I don't think I'm misremembering this because of X, Y, and Z, and I totally misremembered it because of X, Y, and Z. I think I referred to Mike Patton laying into Wolfmother. I think in my head I made the Led Zeppelin connotations, and I think it was Lollapalooza in like Chicago or something. So thanks for that.
Okay, thank you. The engineer on this album, again, some massive, massive albums. He was also the lead engineer on Californication.
I hate it, but it sounds great.
The self-titled Audio Slave album.
I love that album.
Again, Marilyn Manson's Hollywood. Since this, in more recent terms, he's been the producer on The Grey Chapter, Slipknot.
Wow.
And We Are Not Your Kind.
Fuck off.
As well as some recent work by Metallica, their recent S&M 2 release that I've just listened to last week, and their last studio album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. So, you've got the personnel who can make a great album. They recorded it in Olympic Studios in London. Again, huge legacy studio. This studio is up there with your Abbey Roads, with your Maida Vales. It's an icon in the British record industry. You've got artists from the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Led Zeppelin have recorded songs and albums there.
Hendrix, the Beatles.
You name it. You can honestly name So much stuff. I couldn't even begin to list it, and I'm not going to bore you all with it. So you've got all these people, and you've got Gavin Rossdale and the rest of the band. So Gavin Rossdale writes the songs. Nigel's on guitars, and they produced this snooze fest.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the quality of personnel on it. Like, everyone starts somewhere. You know, not everyone's got the Midas touch from the word go. So it's possible this was a learning curve for these guys as well. I don't know where they started in their careers or whatever. Yes, they've gone on to do some great stuff, but that doesn't mean they were necessarily on form for this album.
I wouldn't say it's their doing.
Yeah.
Because essentially, shortly afterwards, the band disbanded. Remember that?
Oh no, I'm laughing my head off. That was great. You had to pause for a sneeze. That's not getting cut.
Anyway, so the band disbanded shortly after the album was released due to the disagreements of how it was produced. I mean, not due to that. There had been a build-up of things, but this was the straw that broke the camel's back. And the harshest critic of the album came in a 2009 interview with the BBC, Nigel Pulsford, the guitarist. He would say that Golden State suffered from too much Pro Tools, and I don't think it sounds very good. I could stop there, but he carries on. All of the life was produced out of it. It's a shame, because the backing tracks sounded great. Anyway, there was disillusionment over the Science of Things, the previous album. There'd been tensions over the mixing of this album. Personal things in Nigel's life. He left, and the tour was undertaken by a different guitarist. They made a few tracks, they made a few videos for this, but the last track that was released was the track Inflatable. That had a video, and Nigel's not even in that.
Right.
And they would disband a few months afterwards. That disbandment would lead to disputes with the various recording deals and labels they'd had in previous years. It all built up to the fact that they weren't paid any royalties since 2001 in Europe, according to Nigel.
Wow. Even Rossdale.
Again, I can only say that's according to Nigel. So whether Rossdale wasn't paying him or whether they weren't getting money for the music side of it, but were getting for the vocal side of it. If you look through the sort of what he was up to in the mid-2000s, it kind of makes sense that he maybe wasn't making as much money from things. He's getting into acting. He was in Zoolander as himself. We'd already mentioned he'd been in Constantine.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Gavin Rossdale tracks got released. I think he had a track on Triple X, the movie.
I was looking at his IMDb earlier, and he plays something in one of the sort of in one of the sort of police crime shows.
Yeah, he had appearances in
Criminal Minds, I think it is, and he looks very much like he's playing himself.
Yeah, by the sound. I think he actually, in Criminal Minds, I think he does play something like the artist or something as his credit.
Yeah.
Name.
He's clearly a musician, and I've not watched the episode. I don't know whether he's the victim or the antagonist or what have you. But there's screenshots and you can see him in makeup and on stage and stuff like that, and he's like going through reporters with his jacket up and stuff like that. So he very much looks like he's playing like himself or fictionalized rocker. So there's maybe a bit of ego going on here. It's clear to say.
So the only track that got me interested in this album, and it's the one that I remember the video for, is the track "The People That We Love," Speed Kills.
Yeah. If you know what I mean.
If you know what I mean.
Great.
They released Head Full of Ghosts in the United States. It didn't have a video, it just had like a live video that just threw some live footage over. And the previous one mentioned Inflatable, again released in the US. Inflatable, I think it was filmed in London, but it's all American. It's about a boy who's going to join the army.
Yeah, army or graduation or good luck someone. I watched about 30 seconds of it and then I fell asleep.
Yeah, it's the slowest. It's one of the slowest songs on the album. It's the ballad. It makes no sense why that was the release song. It makes no sense.
No. I mean, I can be kind to some of this album. You've mentioned Head Full of Ghosts. I agree that's a listenable track. The of my notes are the chorus ... nice.
Nice.
You know,
It's a nice album, yeah.
I think I enjoyed the chorus of Head of Ghosts, and I just sort of felt Superman was okay, because these might be like the only two songs with sort of hooks I recognised. The People That We Love, I did not enjoy that album. I didn't enjoy that song. I didn't hate it. I just it kind of, as does a lot of this album, sort of irritated me. There's so many questions as to why they do the stuff they do on this album, and there's so much repetition and sort of stuff and like outros or vocal lines and stuff like that. It just feels like, oh, that was like 2 to 4 repetitions too much or something. But I can hold my hand up and say I kind of maybe tapped my foot along to Head Full of Ghosts and Superman for however many minutes of my life that was.
My favourite song on the album is Reasons. And the reason that Reasons gets me is I like
because it's a Hoobastank cover. Is it a Hoobastank cover?
It's not a Hoobastank cover. We need to talk about the reason, don't we, one day? It's not a Hoobastank cover. It's just a song called Reasons, not The Reason. It's called Reasons.
Same thing.
Reasons. And
Raisins?
I like the tempo of his voice in that little, at the intro, the sort of like the vocals carry the song, but it's the beat of the vocals. It's hard to describe, but it basically, it doesn't happen any time before in the album, and it doesn't happen any time since. It makes the song stand out because it sounds different to the rest of the album. It doesn't sound like the ballady wet wipe stuff that it sounded like for pretty much the most of it. It's actually got a bit of tempo to it. And again, I come back to like that opening sort of guitar on Solutions is just
absolute snorefest.
Yeah.
And to perhaps make this a thing, first time I heard this album, I was like, fuck me, this is a massive mayonnaise sandwich. It's just the blandest, plainest 2 pieces of white bread and a big sloppy dollop of mayonnaise. You know, it's I can hear the colour beige when I listen to this album.
Well, you look at the album cover. It's a fucking beige album cover.
Well,
it's gold. I mean,
it reminds me. It does sort of. Oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong.
It looks like a toasted mayonnaise sandwich, maybe.
I did kind of get the feeling of like, you know, the Les Paul Gold Top.
Yeah, totally.
That sort of colour from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a toasted mayonnaise sandwich. But you know what? No, because that's too much depth. The toasting adds too much flavour to that toasted mayonnaise sandwich.
Again, it was a victim of 9/11. Not an actual victim. That sounds dreadful.
Phrasing.
It got changed. It got changed to respect 9/11 as it was originally going to have a plane on it.
Oh, the album cover got changed, not the release or anything.
Yeah, the release got released when it did, but the album cover was going to have that on it, and the song "The People That We Love" was actually going to just be called "Speed Kills." So all that there's original promo releases of it, it was just known as Speed Kills, and it wasn't until after 9/11 that they thought maybe we should tone that one down a bit and make that a sort of subplot of the thing. But it's interesting of a song because it's one lyrically it's not exactly exciting, but it is talking about speed of thought that can kill. If you think too fast, you might kill people. You get involved in things too fast, it hurts the people that you love.
Right.
That's the song.
Okay. Have you seen the video for?
I remember the video. I've not watched it recently.
So cringe, man. It is just, it's late 90s, early 2000s as. I mean, I even think Def Leppard might have had better CGI. But it's the, it's just a performance piece. They're just on a green screen, clearly. And there's like an audio wave just panning in and out of the shot, crossing the sort of left to right at different angles. And it's clearly a flat image. Like, there's no... It's not 3D or rendered or anything. It's maybe even just someone's like got a JPEG or a PNG if they had them back in the day, and just like stretching it across the screen every now and again.
I do remember it's just like lots of like flashing lines, like J.J. Abrams-esque.
Oh, that's
like,
being polite to call it J.J. Abrams-esque. It's not even got lens flare. It's just this thing is just flying across. It may have lens flare, but
pinging lights everywhere.
It was just a really cringy
so I
because like. I went back and watched the video for Swallow as well, or Swallowed, and like Gavin Rossdale just kind of does this like weird shaky thing with his guitar when he seems to be performing on for videos and stuff, and I'm just kind of like, this doesn't look good at all.
So anyway, that's where I have to kind of appreciate where I went to next. So Bush was pejoratively called a post-grunge band. Basically, it was grunge of the early 90s without the actual
quality of
heartache, without the actual life experience or problems that associate. It was the clean grunge, if you want. And it was all too easy for Bush to get lumped in as sounding like Nirvana, sounding like... And they got shit for Razor Blade Suitcase because it's the same producer as In Utero. And guess who dated Gavin Rossdale in the 90s?
Courtney Love.
Courtney Love. I mean, he could not be trying to be... Well, whether he was trying or the media was putting him in that direction, he was being put up to this kind of Kurt Cobain, Nirvana.
You're the new grunge guy, but grunge was already on its way out, so he was doomed to fail. Totally.
And that was it. That's where they filled a void, and they took it for what they could get, essentially. So shortly after dating Courtney Love, he ended up getting with No Doubt singer Gwen Stefani. But not before then. Gwen Stefani's brother, Eric Stefani, is playing piano on this album.
Oh, do we think that's how they met?
No, I believe they met on tour a few years earlier, but certainly they would have spent a lot of time together through this, because they got married in 2002, I want to say.
All right, so then, yeah, okay. I've seen No Doubt. Have you seen who the fuck are we talking about again? Bush. Have you seen Bush?
I've never seen them live, no. Although, interestingly, the CD that I bought off eBay came with a ticket stub from their live show at Nottingham Rock City in, I believe, is it October 2001?
Whoever sold you that, I mean, either A, the most redundant thing that has ever been sold, or they completely overestimated how much you enjoy the band. Because why would you have a ticket stub for a gig you didn't go to?
I mean, I didn't ask for the ticket stub. It
no,
wasn't like I'm only buying it if it comes with a used ticket stub.
I understand, but why did they feel? Why would they give it to you? Why would they put that out there for you? Why would they include that? Why, what was their thought process? Did they think, if they're buying this, they must really, that maybe they're massive Bush fans or something?
Keith, it was just where they kept it. It was inside the. They just kept it there. I thought that was quite sensible.
Oh.
I wish I'd done that with a lot of my ticket stubs 20 years ago.
Okay.
Because I've just kept them in a box and they're perishing away. But this one's beautifully preserved inside the CD case of the band that they went to see.
So you don't think it was they intentionally gave it to you? It was probably just in there and they forgot about it.
100%, because who could remember such a memorable gig in November 2001 for such a memorable album?
Yeah, that album probably really... Maybe that was it. Maybe they didn't think about you loving the album so much that you'd want the stub. Maybe they're just like, I just need to get rid of this. This is great. Hang on, I've just read something as well. He is the older brother of former bandmate Gwen Stefani and is also the former animator on television series The Simpsons and the Ren and Stimpy Show. Fuck, Eric Stefani sounds like a cool guy.
I know, he's someone I'd like to have a beer with. He has an interesting backstory.
And yeah, I have. I've seen. No doubt they played Teen the Park.
Nice. They good? I imagine
I
they were.
enjoyed it at the time. You know, I think they were kind of. It was maybe the sort of their last hurrah. They were kind of a bit poppy, a bit more. I don't know. What's that song they did where it was in the video was in black and white and they were on like speed jets and it was like do 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 do. Do 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 do. That's a fucking jam.
All right,
bass
okay.
riff.
Well, there's a soundbite for the headliner.
You knew what the song was this time.
I don't.
Do.
I've got it. It's better than the last one. It's so much better than the last one. Right. Put the vocal karaoke away.
Thanks.
The thing was like, I mean, Gwen Stefani and No Doubt were huge. Yeah. They were massive. They'd had I'm Just a Girl, and Don't Speak. Massive song. For those two to get together was sort of this kind of rock royalty thing. Sure. And 2002 they married. In the lead up to them wanting to start a family, Gavin Rossdale made the choice to try and get his ducks in a row and get his house in order. So he had been a godfather to a model called Daisy Lowe, whose mother was Pearl Lowe. And basically, Daisy wanted Gavin to be her dad, but it was never official.
Gavin was the godfather.
Gavin
did this girl not know who her real dad was?
Yeah. She thought it was some other guy. But there was suspicions that it was Gavin. So Gavin, in preparation for getting his family started with Gwen, got a paternity test done and then cut off all contact with Pearl and Daisy.
Why did it come? Was it not him?
It was him. And Pearl had to go through her lawyers and Gavin's lawyers to get the result released.
Oh, he sounds like a great guy.
I know, right? But it's not like he was a distant father or a absent father. He was with Daisy in her growing up. He'd attended her shows. He'd encouraged her to do things because she was becoming a model around. I think she got involved in modeling like from age 2. Apparently, don't ask me how that happened. Wow. But she was doing things in her own right, and he'd attended all these things and supported her, and then discovered he was actually her father, and then just stopped talking to her. I have no idea. Anyway, just kind of to round that off, though, they have since reconciled. There are articles that show them together, and they're playing and they're friends, and they're best of buds.
So not
now,
a complete douchebag then.
Not completely. It probably helps with the fact that him and Gwen Stefani divorced in 2016 as well. That may have had something to do with it.
Potentially.
I'm not saying that Gwen.
This has gone very gossipy, hasn't it? We're talking about children and bloody marriages and divorces and stuff like that. All right, let's
bring it back. So yeah, I've alluded already to the fact that Golden State was basically the final hurrah of a band that had recognized that it was out of touch.
Okay.
They knew they were out of date.
Sounds like they went pretty quickly though. Like, I mean, I appreciate that that's 4 albums, but they've done their first album. Their second album went number 1. They've done a remix album. Their third album went a little bit electro-y or whatever. That wasn't received well, and then they've tried to come back to their quote roots to do this 4th album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like they've spiraled, and if I can say that. They've
tried to recover themselves, and I think that comes back to Woodstock 99. That was the moment that Nigel says that we saw these really energetic, total like firecracker bands like Limp Bizkit, and we were just not there. We were totally devoid. And you know what? I can see it. The post grunge thing, it's led to some bigger bands now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that post grunge is probably more popular now than it was maybe in the early 2000s and late 90s, when you've got certain bands, one big band that gets lumped in the post grunge. I've given you absolutely zero clue as to where I'm going.
Yeah, I was about to ask what define post grunge. I don't know why, merely because it's probably you we're talking to here. I'm just gonna shot in the dark, pissing into the wind here. Queens of the Stone Age.
No,
Oh, well.
no, I wasn't going down that route. No, I was actually going down a much more, should I say, controversial? They're not controversial. They're just shit. I can't fucking stand them. They basically led the way for bands like Nickelback.
Oh wait, hang on. Bush led the way for Nickelback.
I would say so. They carved a path of this clean cut, radio friendly rock music.
Right, okay,
You know what I
got
mean?
you,
That music that your mum and dad can listen to without it being too offensive.
And
It can shift units, but it doesn't really leave any impression on the young people who are actually going to be making decisions later on in life that can actually drive record sales.
yeah, the kind of bands that get Stacey's mom excited. You know what I mean?
Fully up there.
Stacey's mom.
She had it going on, man. She had it going on.
I'm pretty sure one of the guys from that band passed away from COVID, actually.
Oh, that's sad. Wow. Did not know that.
As I can't remember the band's name or the artist's name, so apologies, but R.I.P.
Fountains of Wayne.
Wayne. I'm sure it's the singer from Fountains of Wayne passed away from COVID. Do
No
I need
way.
to confirm that?
Oh.
If we're just doing that?
Yeah, can we get that confirmed?
Fountains
I'll try and
Wayne.
carry
Thanks.
through. Absolute. I mean, I'm not heartbroken. I barely knew the band. I literally know one song, but still.
Yeah, Adam.
Nope.
Schulsinger. Adam Schulsinger. Bass guitar, drums, keyboards, rhythm guitar, backing vocals. Passed away 2020.
Goodness me, that's a
bummer.
shame. Kind of coming back to Bush.
Mm-hmm.
They had been mired in a legal dispute in Canada.
Canada.
In Canada.
What
Canada.
about?
We haven't got any listeners in Canada
What
yet. I'd like
what
to change
about,
that,
eh?
but basically another band from the 70s were called Bush, and the lead singer or the main guy of this band, he had exclusive Canadian rights to the name.
Can't come here to
Bush.
Canada, eh? Taking our bush names, eh? Can't come to Canada. That's our bush names.
So instead, Bush used the name Bush X.
Oh, they didn't.
They did.
Oh, it doesn't get any better for them. Good lord.
That was in 1995. It got resolved with the settlement out of court with the owners of the original Canadian Bush name.
The Canadian Bush.
The
owners
Canadian
of the
Bush.
original Canadian Bush.
Asking for the British Bush guys, each of them, to pay 20 grand to charity.
All right. Good move.
So 80 grand, and they could drop that little. It wasn't actually Bush X, it was like Bush superscript X, like a little X squared type or cubed
All right,
type
there,
thing.
boys. You pay that to charity, yeah, there, and we'll get you can drop your X.
All right, Fargo, carry on.
Thanks for this.
So yeah, that was the story of
Did they do it? Did they pay them?
Bush. They got it. They got the name in the end, and they paid it. Which, all right, fair do. All play to them.
Did they pay it, or did their label pay it?
Apparently, it was each band member had to pay 20 grand.
Yeah, but I mean, what does that mean? Like, the band, the label could have just been like, all right, here's your 80k split between the two of you, four of you.
Well, what they're going to do is just be like, we'll just dock 20 grand out of your next paycheck.
Probably
Each.
something like that.
Who knows?
Something like that. So did you? So Bush broke up after this, right?
They did, and I never listened to them again.
Well, that answers that question then before I even answer it. So you didn't.
But I want to get into this. It led me to actually listen to real grunge, and it is because of bands of Golden State. It is because of Golden State that I started listening to bands like Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, and the already mentioned Nirvana. It was
honestly, I thought you were going to say the previously mentioned Nickelback
and Queens of the Stone Age. No, it was because of this sound, which I like I say, I like some of the songs on the album. The album is poorly paced and poorly produced, whatever, but it still had a sound to it that I was like, I dig that, but I would like it better. Can I get it done properly now? And it made me look back towards the inspirations for this to get a better idea of what they were trying to achieve, sort of what they were trying to go for. And that's once you listen to something like In Utero or maybe Dirt by Alice in Chains, you realize these guys were fucking way off. They weren't ever touching it.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. Like, I mean, I have to admit, grunge is just something I've never really gotten into. At most, I have given a bit of time to Alice in Chains. Don't know. I seem to have liked Alice in Chains before, but I never gave a fuck about Nirvana. I don't give a fuck about whoever else you just said. Like, I'm just
we're gonna have some conversations over the next few weeks, Keith, because my tastes are now going in that direction.
Ah, great.
Yeah,
but this is what I mean. Like, I am surprised that Bush, that they did send you towards the likes of Alice in Chains and Nirvana and Soundgarden, and not your Nickelbacks or your Creeds or whatever. Like, that's stadium rock. Is that what we refer to that as? Stadium rock?
There's a guy on YouTube that refers to it as butt rock, and he doesn't mean it in like butt as in buttocks. He refers to it as in radio stations that play nothing but rock.
Nice. I've actually just realised on the Bush Wikipedia I can see Bush X. You're right. It's almost like a times or whatever. It's not like an actual.
Yeah, it's like the square root of Bush or the X. The X is the find X. Find the variable.
X gonna give it to you.
But yeah, it was. I have to. It was a real tough listen to go back to because.
Oh boy.
It hasn't aged well. It's still a dull, bland album, and I was regretting. I must admit, when I said it out loud in the previous podcast with After Origin of Symmetry, I was like, "Oh God, what have I let myself in for?" And I started listening to it, and I'm like, "Oh God, I'm gonna have to do this." And then I've started researching it. I've started researching it, and it's actually through its research that I'm like, oh, this has actually got some meat around its bones here. It's
all right, bit of a story.
It's got a bit of story behind it. It's everyone likes to see a tragedy. Everyone wants to see a car crash. And it's this was far from a car crash album. It seemed to get recorded and put together fair enough, but reception was so flat that it just resulted in the end of the band as they were. They came back in 2010 with the guitarist that covered for Nigel on that tour. He stepped up, and they had the original drummer and Gavin and a new bassist, I think. They put out a few more albums. That they're still making stuff now. As far as I can tell, I think the drummer's since left. They got another one in.
Wow.
But there was a good window of about 9 or 10 years where they just did not release anything. And I'm wondering if, again, that might come back to those contracts if there was some sort of like, "No, the name Bush is owned by Atlantic Records. You're not allowed to make anything under that name for X amount of time."
Yeah, sure.
That's a strange one, but it doesn't change the fact that the album's still really boring.
I mean, does
badly
Gavin
paced
Rossdale
and-
sing the same note the entire album?
Yeah, he does. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna agree with that one because I think his voice is very monotonous in it.
Oh,
I
Christ,
think he's going
so
for
monotonous.
he's going for that Kurt Cobain sound though, isn't he?
Like, you first hear him, you first hear the voice, and you're like, all right, yeah, there's maybe something here. I quite like the tone. I kind of like what's going on here. And then approximately 2 seconds later, you think, oh God, no, it's the same thing. It's just on repeat.
He's not a bad singer.
He's not a bad singer.
I don't think he's a bad singer. I don't think any of the band members are poor musicians by any stretch. I think they're clearly talented. It's just this album was just just try hard. Were they trying too hard? I mean, that's what Nigel kind of alluded to in that interview with BBC. What do you think?
Well, yeah, you're right. I don't think Rossdale's a bad singer in the slightest. It's just ironically none of his music that he writes complements his voice. And then, yeah, there are parts of these songs that are like, there's moments, there's like a solo or there's like a chord progression or something where you think, oh, cool, something's going to happen. Where is this going to go? Or this could be cool. But then nothing changes. It's just the same drive and drivel behind it that was there for the previous 3 minutes or whatever. So yeah, like it's just so funny that like you've got to this album and like you've got this great memory of it, and it's cool that it's led you to other places such as significantly better bands, or at least significantly better music than what this album was. But like, fuck me, it is. I listened to this driving back from Scotland yesterday and nearly fell asleep. I nearly died because
did this album almost kill you?
Well, it was just so indiscernible. Like, it was like, I mean, it was raining really badly. Not that that's an excuse, but like, I just felt like it was each song was like a sequence of parts. It was not any complete song. It was just like here's a bit and here's a bit and here's a bit, and let's put sexy Gavin Rossdale over it, and then that's it.
Sexy Gavin Rossdale.
I mean, he's an attractive man. Let's not mince our words here. Like, you can see why they probably got very popular very quick. But like,
yeah, definitely,
absolutely a bleak, bland, flavorless, fucking male sandwich, mate.
Yeah, I guess I have to give it its props for what it opened my eyes to, and it made me. And it's something that I do a lot with the music that I listen to. I like to do anyway, is to kind of look back a bit. So I like to look at bands that inspired bands. So in the mid 2000s, listening to bands that we ended up going on to, like Killswitch Engage, Parkway Drive, that would then take a step back. I would go, right, what influenced that? So I would listen to bands like At the Gates. I would listen to bands like In Flames, and it's like, well, what was the driving forces behind that? And I would listen to maybe a bit of Dio, and then you start going even further back, in Rainbow and Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and you can go back forever. You can, it's pretty infinite.
I'm waiting for you to go back to Bush though. Like, who the fuck influenced Bush? Because everyone you named came before Bush.
So well, that's that. What did Bush go on to influence? Sorry, is that what you're wondering?
Yeah. Silence says everything. There you go.
You name some. Like I said,
No,
I don't think they influenced it, but I think they laid the groundwork for bands like Nickelback, like Creed. They made grunge super accessible and super radio friendly for, you got to appealing to those rock fans from the 80s who'd come off hair metal. They'd come away from, they didn't quite like the harshness of Nevermind and that sound that can be a bit that abrasiveness. So they wanted something that's smooth, easy listening, but still, you know, they can just put it on the background and not offend anybody.
Still had the impression that like it rocked, like that there was a punch to it or something. Yeah, fucking look at this photograph of Gavin Rossdale.
Look at this photograph.
Do you know what I saw today actually was a picture frame, and it's fucking poodle haircut holding up the photograph, and then they've just cut out where the photograph was, so you can put your own photograph of him. This is great.
Was that a real physical frame in like B&M or something?
I'll buy you it. That'll be your birthday present.
Oh, please do.
I will
Can't
buy
wait to
you
throw it
that.
in the bin.
No, you have to keep it for a year, at least a
Yeah,
year.
is that a deal? Like, oh, okay. If you
You know, maybe you can take a screen grab of us in the pod, and I'll do that actually. I'll put a little screen grab of us in the pod, and it'll be look at this photograph, and it's just a photograph of me and you.
holding a photograph of me and you,
Exactly.
holding a photograph of me and you, ad
Exactly.
infinitum. Fantastic.
Do we have anything else to talk about when it comes to Bush?
I mean, we've managed to almost stretch this to an hour. I'm stunned. I thought it was going to be out of material within 10 minutes.
Me too. Me too.
So yeah, again, I think it's because it's an interesting set of personnel and what they were doing and what they have since become. It just goes to show that the band had all the ingredients to make a lovely, lovely cake, and they just made it shite.
Yeah, I mean, for all the jokes and this is a mayonnaise sandwich and what have you. How many times have I said that now? But like, I suppose it sucks that like at the end of the day, these guys lost the band out of this. They had fallouts and they had disagreements, and whether it was a certain singer's ego or whether it was label influence or whatever it was, like that kind of blows.
From what I can tell, Atlantic sold them up the river, and I've known Atlantic have done that since with other bands as well.
Are they the same as Maverick?
Not in the same vein, but I know that Atlantic were the ones that I'm sure Funeral for a Friend were on Atlantic. And it was Atlantic that decided to release the greatest hits album, Your History Is Mine.
Yeah.
And the guys in Funeral for a Friend weren't really aware of that. Atlantic did that on their own because they had the rights to the songs. They could effectively do whatever they want, and it's a known thing to get a band out of a contract is just throw a greatest hits album together.
Take up one of the album slots by that. Yeah, it was Atlantic. They were on Atlantic.
So that was the exit of Funeral for a Friend from Atlantic Records.
Shit.
Was Your History Is Mine. That didn't happen with Bush because I'm guessing they needed to release more than one greatest hits album. And yeah, I'd struggle to make a single one, to be perfectly frank.
Fair. They did, they did. That's interesting. Because Tales Don't Tell Themselves, I think a very highly underrated album, was on Atlantic. And then
I dislike it.
You would. And then Memory and Humanity was actually on Roadrunner. But then
There's a label we need to discuss one day.
But then the Your History Is Mine.
Because who do you think Nickelback was signed to?
Yeah, of course, Roadrunner.
Fucking Roadrunner.
Man, at one point I had my little CD tower in my bedroom because we all had fucking CD towers back in the day.
Oh yes.
I didn't do it alphabetically, but I did at one point realize I had half my stack was Roadrunner records. So I just had I just reshuffled them all to be all my Roadrunner albums in one go. And I've already got ahead of me. I think we're going to cover the Roadrunner 25th anniversary, the Roadrunner United, because
yes, we are.
I fucking loved that album. That was intense.
I've got a DVD from 2000 and I want to say 5, but it was basically a load of music videos from Roadrunner up to that point. And I'm sure it's got bands from Chimera, El Nino,
Nino.
Every Time I Die.
Yeah.
and then Nickelback.
Well,
I've said their name too many times in this episode. If there's some AI bot scanning through and we start getting Nickelback fans in here, we're in trouble.
and you're more than welcome to Alive or Just Blethering. Another band that sort of ended up on Roadrunner that you wouldn't think would end up on Roadrunner were our old friends Dream Theater.
Did they?
I say old friends, we've not actually spoken about them yet. We're fucking gonna. I'm just preempting it. But yeah,
You've been building it up for weeks.
Roadrunner signed to what was the album called? Yeah, one of their sort of albums went on to Roadrunner as well. I don't know how long they stayed. I suppose we'll find that out.
You'll need to tell us one day. But yeah, that was Bush and Golden State and what it meant to me and what it means to me now. Nada. So,
thanks very much. I've already forgotten what the fuck we were talking about. I'll never remember those songs again. Like I will genuinely. It's already left my memory. But might go watch Constantine.
yeah, I might watch Constantine soon actually as well. It's one I've not seen for a while, and I remember enjoying it the first time I watched it, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it the next.
Keanu Reeves, man, can't go wrong.
So next week it's gonna be you.
Yeah, what the fuck am I doing next week?
Don't know. It's your album. It's your choice.
Oh, I know what I'm doing next week. Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago I mentioned if I was, early 20s, if you'd asked me what my favourite albums were, I'd have said what? Can you remember?
Oh, I remember. I'm going to let you do the reveal though.
Right, so we've done one. We've done Origin of Symmetry. You and I have got a little something special planned for one of the other bands, which leaves Morning View by Incubus. I'm going to do Morning View because I fucking love that album. Still to this day, it's one of my top albums. So yeah, I was into Incubus hard when I was younger. So much so I have an Incubus tattoo. So yeah, we'll wait into that and we'll see.
Is it somewhere that's publicly safe to show?
If by that you mean no, it's not.
So we're not going to put any pictures of your Incubus tattoo on the Instagram page.
It's on my back. I could show you if you want, but it's.
I'm not interested. It's more for our listeners.
It's really faded. Well, I'm quite fond of the tattoo. It's not an embarrassing tattoo by any means. I could put it on, but I'll be like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's my Incubus tattoo. What of it? But it's really faded these days. It's probably one of my oldest tattoos, so I'm gonna have to get it touched up.
I've never had any band tattoos. I've got nothing.
I've also technically got a Funeral for a Friend tattoo as well. It doesn't look like Funeral for a Friend. I didn't take any of the artwork.
Right.
I took a song name.
Go on.
Well, I've got Roses for the Dead across my shoulders.
Do you?
One arm says Roses for, the other arm says The Dead.
Oh, I didn't know that. Very nice.
It's been there for
I've never got a lyric. I've had lyric ideas, but by the time it comes around to me actually wanting to get it done, I've moved on from that band, so it's kind of its meaning has left me.
Yeah, I can't really escape the Fish. The Fish are definitely an Incubus tattoo, and I'm fine with that because I still enjoy the album, and I still enjoy Funeral for a Friend. But to it doesn't look like a Funeral for a Friend tattoo, so it's fine. Like it's not like I've got like the chick with the body armor, like or anything like that, or the two people on the rock with the blindfolds.
Yeah, fair enough. Ah, that's good. Well, we can talk tattoos and things in the next episode of Alive or Just Blethering. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been Alive or Just Blethering. Head on over to our Instagram and Twitter at AOGB Podcast for all of our latest updates, memes, and top quality content. Next time on Alive or Just Blethering, Keith is going to be taking us through Morning View by Incubus.
Yes, bloody Incubus! We want to go back to bloody Incubus and celebrate Morning View, bloody Counterweight. Good night!
I wish you were here. Bye-bye.